Hello, hello, welcome in. Jason Priester, Clemson Insider. What a weekend of college football we just had. Um, lot of unexpected results. And Clemson fans over here worried about the red zone issues from Saturday night. Could have been a lot worse. Could have been a lot worse, as we saw. Alabama goes down. Not only goes down, they go down to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt. Um, Tennessee goes down. If you're just looking into ACC, Louisville goes down. Michigan gets beat. Southern Cal gets beat. I mean, it was just a crazy, crazy weekend. And before we dive into the clips and stuff, the weekend was capped off by that travesty that happened out on the West Coast, Miami, the ACC, Miami and Cal. Might as well throw the ACC in there too, because back-to-back weeks, it is becoming painfully obvious that the ACC is doing everything in their power to protect their lone remaining unbeaten team. The ending against Virginia Tech stunk. Just reeked. And let me preface this by saying I'm not sure the guy had possession of the ball. I'm not sure it was a touchdown, but it was a call to touchdown on the field. And there was nothing in any of those replays to even suggest that there was incontrovertible evidence or indisputable evidence, however you want to term it. There just wasn't enough to overturn it. It should have been stuck with the call on the field. And, from my understanding, that call was made in Charlotte. The head official who usually makes the call, if I'm right about the information I got here, did not even make the call. It came from the league office in Charlotte. But that pales into comparison to what we saw Saturday night. Cal shouldn't be blowing any big time leads like that. Make no mistake. They deserve some of the blame, but they had a chance to clinch that game. All you need is a first down, and the game's pretty much over. After that, they could probably start kneeling on it. You get a textbook targeting, no flag thrown. They still send it up for review. They review it for several minutes. Again, like I said last week, if it takes you 5 minutes to review something ain't right. Something's not right. It was about as textbook of a targeting as you could get if you're just going by the rule. You had the launch, you had the head, the launch, the crown of the helmet, the head, the neck area. I mean, you hit on every point. But yet somehow it's ruled not a targeting. Cal's got to punt it, and of course Miami goes down. I'm not a big conspiracy theory guy by any stretch. I don't buy into a lot of this crap you see online. But something stinks here with the ACC in Miami. Something stinks big time. It's 2 weeks in a row. And that was just one call in that game that was weird, man, toward the end. I've seen some steal shots of the final touchdown play where they're saying there were several men, a lineman, illegally downfield. I didn't really go back and watch it to make sure that was the case, because you can take a steal shot and make it say what you want to. So I'm not saying that's absolutely legit, but I've seen a lot of people making that argument. But if that's called targeting like it should be, that game's over. Miami's done for. They got a L. They got a L. It just looks to me like the ACC is doing everything in their power to, protect that unbeaten team, that the team that is, I forget where Miami's ranked now after the new rankings came out, but after all that happened the weekend, they made a big jump, and contrary to popular opinion, it's the four. Just but winning the ACC doesn't automatically get you into the playoff. You got to be one of the 5 highest ranked conference champions. So I mean, And you keep Miami unbeaten, it ups your possibilities of maybe possibly sneaking a second team into the playoff. Man, it's just I don't know, man. It to me is starting to stink of messing with the integrity of the game, man. It was just a total joke what happened out there the other night, and then to make matters worse, after Mario Cristobal was just gifted a game for the second week in a row, he gets on TV and starts moaning and groaning about having to fly 3,000 miles and how the air conditioners busted in the cow locker room, visiting locker room or something. Just sound like a big old baby, man. Just shut the hell up, man. Take your gifted victory and fly on back to Miami. Red zone struggles for Clemson Saturday night. 6 trips into the red zone, I think it was 0 touchdowns. 0 touchdowns. They were coming in. I think they had scored. They had been in the red zone 10 times, scored touchdowns on 6 of those trips. What happened Saturday night would definitely skew the percentages a little bit there. You heard Dabo and Cade actually both say after the game, maybe probably should have called some different things down there. Cade specifically said he would have liked to have had the opportunity to thrown a fade route or two down there. That the DPs were really playing a lot of inside leverage and taking away the inside stuff, and he'd have liked to have at least had the opportunity to throw a fade. But it is what it is. On a weekend where so much craziness happened, man, just be glad you got out of there with a win. Beat them 29-16, or 29-13. You beat them by 16 points. That's the second largest deficit or second largest margin Clemson's ever won by in Tallahassee. I mean, you hold them to 1 yard per carry or less than 1 yard per carry, if I remember. Either way, man, it's they couldn't run the ball. I didn't think Jaden Lucas played particularly well. The coaches must not have either, because they kept yanking him out and putting Ashton Hampton in. Hampton actually ended up playing more snaps than Lucas did. If you're going to have somebody out there continuously messing up, you might as well throw your freshman out there and let him learn on the job and let him mess up out there. But, biggest thing out of that game, though, you got to get the protection on the field goals fixed over there. That Dabo was not happy about that. Didn't get a chance to rewatch the game last night, and I've not been home most of the day today, so I've not rewatched it. So I didn't really get to go back and look at what happened. I do remember on the first one, Vic Burley ended up on his backside. He was over there on that side. And, and I do remember Dabo saying after the game, I think I remember Dabo saying after the game that Vic Burley was one of the guys that got banged up. Maybe that was the play I hadn't known. I don't know, but got some things to clean up on that side. Other than that, I thought special teams were pretty good. I see somebody over here. Here we go, right here. Special teams continue to play Clemson. I didn't think they played them too much. I thought they did pretty well. Punt return. They only punted twice, but both the Swanson's punts were pretty good. Robert Gunn is an absolute weapon. The one time Florida State chose to bring it out, they didn't get anything. I wouldn't worry too much about the protection on the field goal. That'll get fixed, even if you got to change personnel. Outside of the two breakdowns there, I think Clemson's special teams have been pretty good this year. I wonder how impressed Donovan Murphy is with the Gamecock passing game. This weekend shows Sellers is not in. Well, that's yet to be determined. And I'm a little biased toward Lenore, I'll admit it, because he went to the same high school I did too. But, it's way too early to be throwing in the towel on that guy. And if you want to get brutal truth, I never liked the fact that he even went to South Carolina. I was worried about the way he'd be developed, worried about the supporting cast around him. The guy's a good football player, man. He's a good quarterback. He's one of the best high school quarterbacks I've ever seen. But again, a year ago, people were saying the same thing about Cade. He's a bust. He's not it. And all of a sudden, he gets a year under his belt, learns, grows, and He looks like a totally different dude this year. A lot of that's got to do with the protection up front, which South Carolina has none of. The playmakers on the outside, South Carolina's lacking there too. So I don't know that I'm putting it all on Sellers. He's still a young quarterback. He's still got he's got some developing to do. He was not a guy that was ready to go day one when he got on campus. Not sure he might not be. He's still got some. Again, he's still got some developing to do. As far as Donovan Murphy goes, way too early for some of these predictions I've been seeing come out. Way too early. Who knows? Maybe he ends up at South Carolina. I have, very well could be. He plays there at Irmo. He's visited there a lot. They've already taken 5 wide receivers in this class. He would be a 6th. That's a lot. Again, maybe he ends up there. I don't know. I just think it's way too early to say one way or the other at this point. Let's get a little bit further down the line and let him take a few more visits. He's supposed to take some officials. Clemson's supposed to get one if what I'm told is it comes to fruition. So let's get into November. Maybe even let's get into November and see where we are there. Way too early to be throwing out the predictions on him. The ACC wants 2 8-0 teams playing for the title. They might have 3. I don't think I just think that they want to make sure they get one in. I think they want to protect the one that gives them the best shot right now and maybe hopefully sneak a second in. If you want to know what the tiebreakers are, I got them posted in the group today. They get very technical. But I got each one of them listed there. I took it straight from the ACC's website. A lot of football left to be played. If I was a betting man, I would bet almost anything that there's not going to be 3 8-0 teams. I'm not sure Miami goes 8-0 the way that defense has looked the past 2 weeks. At a certain point, the luck and the help's going to run out, and somebody's going to get them. Because maybe SMU, they don't really play anybody the rest of the way. Their schedule, sets up real nice. They don't have to play Clemson or Miami. And, none of those 3 teams play each other this year. I mean, they got to go to Stanford this weekend, or excuse me, on the 19th. They're off this weekend. Then they got to go to Duke. So that's back-to-back road games. Then they welcome in Pitt, and that is a game that is far from a given. Then they play Boston College, Virginia, and they'll wrap it up with Cal. So not the most difficult of schedules, but I still wouldn't. I would not bet on them running the table. Juju Preston. Yeah, I touched base with him the other night, and I hate to even talk about this because it's not been publicized very much, and I don't know how many people know about it. But he switched high schools during the summer, and he's not played yet at his new school. His head coach, he followed his old head coach to where he's at now. I forget the name of the new school. I forget the name. He wasn't Freedom. Moved somewhere else. His head coach moved, so he went with him. He's not played yet. He had a hearing or a meeting with the Virginia High School League last week, hoping he could get cleared, ruled eligible, and he's still waiting here. Last I talked to him, he was waiting to hear back from them. So anybody on Twitter saying he's ineligible, that's as of last Friday, he had not been ruled ineligible. He's just waiting on, the green light to play. Norvell probably gone after season. I don't know. I doubt it, man. His buyout is, I think it's It's like around 60 million, 56 million, 61 million. I can't. It's somewhere in that neighborhood. That ain't a check Florida State's going to write right now. He just got extended before this season. I mean, his buyout is ginormous. They stuck with him for a minute. Do you see us having another slip-up game? I seriously see us making Pitt look good. We will not perform well up there when that game gets here. I worry a little bit more about the Virginia Tech game, but both of those games, those are easily games you can lose, man. They're on the road and they're in November, especially if it's cold up there in those spots. We saw this past weekend, anybody can be beat on any weekend. It just kind of is what it is, but those would be the two that I would circle. Cristobal making it easy to hate him more than Doran. Yeah, those comments after the game, I don't know, man. They just didn't sit well with me. They just, especially after you just got gifted one, and you had standing on that sideline, and as long as it took for that review, you just know they were showing that play on the video board over and over and over. So he had to see it. I mean, he had to know that they just got gifted one, and he comes out here bitching about the air conditioning in the locker room, man. Hey, you're not at home. You're on the road, man. You're going to face some adversity from time to time. And might I remind you, you're over here griping about the travel, yet your school voted to add those guys. Are we confident in Landon Murphy? I would not. I'm no, not right now. I don't know which way that thing's. I think it's going to be Clemson or South Carolina. I do think Alabama made a little bit of a move when he was there last weekend when they beat Georgia. Don't know that they made up enough of one, but no, I don't think either of them schools should be confident, like that confident right now. Things wide open still. It could go either way at this point. It was a weird game. What was up with Sammy Brown not getting many plays at all? The bulk of his actions come in garbage time, and there was not a lot of garbage time in that game. He got 7 snaps. I think all 7 were when they ran 3 backer sets. Again, I'd have to go back and watch it. I didn't get home to 9:00 last night, so I didn't have a chance to watch it yesterday, and I've not been home today, so I haven't been able to watch it back. When I saw him on the field, it was just 3 backer sets, and if you ask me why he's not getting many plays, if you go back and look at Clemson's defense last year, year 4 last, year 4 that, the starting linebackers pretty much play every snap unless there's garbage time. That's just the way it is. And I would not expect much different this year. Mike linebacker is a difficult spot to learn. You have to basically be the quarterback of the defense. He himself says he still has ways to go with some of this stuff. He's asked after the Stanford game, about where he was in his development, if he's about where he thought he'd be, and he said he's about where he thought he'd be, and he's still got some things to work on. And I just think right now he's not on the field in front of Woodaz because they think Woodaz gives them a better shot to win. Got to try to get more pressure on QBs. I haven't seen the numbers from the Florida State game. I don't remember if I saw them from Stanford. About Stanford didn't throw the ball that much, so there wasn't a lot of rushing the passer. They ran it more than anything. But before that game, Clemson's pressure rate was pretty good. They were very much affecting the quarterback, making him speed up the throws, those kind of things. Just because you're not seeing a bunch of sacks doesn't mean they're not affecting what the quarterback does. Again, let me preface this by saying I'm not going back and rewatch Saturday's game. And at this point, I don't know if I will. I didn't notice a whole lot of blitzing. And if you're not going to blitz, most of the time you're rushing 4 against 5, sometimes 6. And you're doing it with a guy like Peter Woods, not 100%, only playing 20-something snaps or 21 snaps, I think it was, or 22. Not sure DeMonte Capart's fully back 100% yet. It's just different games call for different game plans. I wouldn't say Clemson's not getting any pressure on the quarterbacks at all. Seems to me Riley and Dabo decided before the game to just make it a run game, even in the red zone, 3-1 almost all night. Yeah, I thought they went in with the intention on running the ball, and when they had some trouble most of the first half getting the running game going. I thought Florida State's front four probably played the best I've seen them play all year. They were up for this game. It wasn't until Maffa broke off that 20-something yard run late in the second half. Before that, he didn't have jack squat numbers wise. He was averaging, I think, around a yard per carry. But yeah, I think that was one of the goals they wanted to, wear them down. And I thought they started to do that at one point. I didn't see it because I hadn't watched the broadcast, but somebody told me that one of the shots at Dabo there late in the game, I don't remember if he said late in the third quarter. Can't remember when he said it was, but it looked like Dabo was saying, just run Maffa. And that was, I think that was, matter of fact, I think he said it was sometime in the fourth quarter, right before he started to really go off. And, they ended up having over 200 rushing yards, 200 passing yards, and Clemson's only lost one time ever when they've done that. That was against Duke last year, and one of the most screwiest games I've ever seen. But, I do think that running the ball was something they went in wanting to do. I wish punt returns wasn't like taking a playoff most times. We almost never pressure the punter, yet the coverage emphasis doesn't create the big return. I thought, Antonio averaged up close to 20 yards per return the other night. He had a couple of good returns. But yeah, most of the time they just fair catch it and go. It kind of is what it is. I'd like to see them return a few more. Was it Saturday night after the game? I think it was Saturday night when Dabo said there was probably one more that shouldn't have been fair caught. That was fair caught. But the two Antonio return, he had pretty good returns on. Cade keeps playing like he is, does he return next year? I can't answer that at this point. You just have to get through the season and see what happens. It would certainly open up the possibility for him leaving. On the other side of that, if he were to come back, you have to wonder what that means for Chris Vezina. Is he going to be willing to sit another year? I would not. I'm not sure I'd bet on that being the case. I know he redshirted last year. So he, even if he did decide he would have 2 more years after next year. But in this day and age, you're going to be hard pressed to find a quarterback willing to sit for 3 years. So if Cade decides he wants to return next year, that might well open the door for Vezina to head elsewhere. South Florence, Hartsville on a collision course. Any other guys on those teams Clemson looking at? Nope. Not. Nope. Just Amare. Just Amare from South Florence. There's a kid, Lenore's brother's committed to South Carolina, but it's not Clemson's not looking at him or anything. 2026 receivers we are in good position with. It's so early. A better time to ask that would be, after like the elite junior or the elite retreat and stuff in January. But I've touched base with Sadarian Morgan. He said as of right now he's got no plans to visit Clemson this season. That doesn't mean he wouldn't be here in January. Then there's Devin Carter, Naeem Burrows, Gordon Sellers, who they just offered from there in Charlotte, goes to the same school that David Sanders goes to, and Connor Salmon from Virginia. Sellers just visited last week, I think it was. Salmon visited week before last. Burrows was here earlier in the season, and can't remember about Carter off the top of my head. Pretty sure he's already been in here. But again, it's just too early to make the call on any of these guys, especially I don't feel good about Clemson's chances with Morgan. I'm not sure how good I feel about him with Burrows. If I had to say one, I felt the best, or I feel better about Connor and Salmon at this point than the other guys. What does the Mario Nash decommitment mean for Clemson? I don't think it means anything. I know he decommitted from. Oh, matter of fact, the only reason I knew that is because somebody else on here texted me and told me earlier today. I quit following him before he even committed to Ole Miss or Mississippi State, whichever one it was. There was that recruitment just went on a different path that it was never going to be Clemson. Why was Clemson struggling to get tees 5 of 7 on field goal? I just think, I think Florida, like John said earlier, they were relying a lot on the running game, and Florida State was stacking the box. And I didn't like some of the play calls in the red zone. It sounds like, even Dabo kind of touched on it after the game. Cade touched on it after the game, that if they had to do it over again, maybe they would attack it in a different way. Cade even talked about the FSU DBs playing a lot of inside leverage, which I just think it was basically one of those days, man. I just think that the further we got into that game, the more conservative the play calling got. You get up 17-0. Your defense is playing well enough where it doesn't look like you're going to allow a whole lot of points. I just don't think they wanted to take too many chances and give up momentum. I wouldn't worry too much about the blocked field goals. That wasn't on the kicker. It was on the protection, and they'll get that fixed, even if it means switching out the personnel. But, obviously you don't want to go over in the red zone when it comes to touchdowns. Like I said earlier, I think they were 6 of 10. They had 10 red zone trips coming into the Florida State game and scored touchdowns on 6 of them. So that's 60% clip. You go from 60% to 0% against Florida State. I mean, that's definitely not what you want to do week in and week out. But I wouldn't, unless it starts to become a recurring theme, I don't know that I'd get too overly concerned about it at this point. It might just be one of those things where it was one of those weeks. That's kind of where I lean right now. I mean, it was a crazy weekend everywhere across the whole country. But I just don't think they took a whole lot of chances once they got down there and they were comfortable coming away with the 3. Somebody says Nash already committed to A&M today after he was just out, took a visit to Florida State. Let's see. It would be very ACC for FSU to go down and beat Miami with Brock playing out of his mind and still not go to a bowl. Look, I thought Florida State's offense looked much better with Brock at quarterback the other night, and he had not played well at all in his previous starts. I think his completion percentage was under 40% coming into the other night. But I thought he played. I thought he played pretty well the other night. He was poised. The moment didn't look too big for him. His receivers didn't help him out a whole lot at times. There was a couple of drops. Again, his pass protection sucks. And you got zero running game. No running game. You take all that into account. Norvell looks like he's got something to work with there in Brock Glenn. But yeah, it would be that would be the most ACC thing ever. Alan said, hopefully Louisville will get Miami. Yeah, Miami's got to play Louisville on the 19th. They have to go to Louisville, and Miami is up to number 6 in the polls now. That's what it is. Did Kylon Griffin play Saturday? Didn't see a lot of 2 safety sets in the game from Clemson. He played 1 snap. See, right now you see Lewis is getting a lot of time at the nickel, and Khalil Barnes and R.J. Mickens are getting the work at the other safety spots. I looked at all the snap counts today. Mickens played 68 snaps. Barnes played 66. Those are your 2 safeties. Shelton Lewis at the nickel played 42. Kylon Griffin played 1. Thought our O-line had another good game. I thought the offensive line, I thought it started out a little slow, and I thought they got better as the game went along. I thought it just got stronger and stronger and stronger as the game went on, and they eventually took it over. I thought Clemson won the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, to be quite honest. It was – but again, like my man asked a minute ago, you talked about a minute ago, you get into the red zone. I think they have 6 red zone trips. It was 5 or 6. I can't remember. Well, hold on. I might look right here. Let's see. Nope, don't list it on here. I think it was 5 or 6, and you don't score a touchdown on any of them. If you score 2 touchdowns instead of, and kick field goals the rest of the time, you're talking about a blowout. It was a weird game. It just felt, it felt like Clemson's in control. And then you look up, all of a sudden, they're just kind of letting Florida State hang around, although it feels like Clemson's in control. That's kind of what I mean by when I say it was weird. And, who knows if they hit that 2-point conversion, they're only down 1 score, despite the fact Clemson's dominating in every statistical category. Oh, I also should add in that Doak was very, very similar to Williams-Brice Saturday night. The place emptied out after halftime, and a lot of the fans left and didn't come back. It actually ended up being a pretty decent crowd, though, considering they come in 1-4 and place is pretty full. Some of them late arriving, but it ended up being pretty full. You see us picking up any more recruits soon since just got the defensive lineman from Atlanta. I think, obviously Jordan Young's still out there, the safety. I'm kind of we'll see what happens with him. He's going to announce in November. I think it's November, so I forget the date. It was supposed to be October 12th, but he pushed it back. So that's the guy you got to watch. Donovan Murph's the guy you got to watch. There's an offensive lineman, Nelson McGuire. Keep an eye on. Clemson's trying to land another defensive lineman, Christian Ingram, that they're trying to land. So there's some guys they're trying to add to this class. They'd like to add, they'd like to add another offensive lineman, another defensive tackle, or let's just say another defensive lineman. They take Murph at wide receiver, absolutely, if they could get him, and they take Young, absolutely, if they could get him. I'll be curious to see if Young goes elsewhere. Do they try to add another safety? Because you got 2 leaving out at the end of the year, but we'll see what they do. But those are kind of the names to know at this point. Peter Woods needs to be back on the inside. He played on the inside some Saturday. I would expect you to see, we'd already seen him a little bit on the inside before he got hurt, and not a lot. But again, it was only a game and a half. With the emergence of Lawson, because he played pretty dang good the other night there at the end, and Hoffler kind of starting to grow up a little bit, it will allow them to move him back inside some. And depending on the situation, I think you will see him move back inside at times. But this year you'll see him. He's going to do both. What game was you watching? Sammy had a great game. I assume we're talking about Sammy Brown. I don't think I said he didn't. He only played 7 snaps. It was only when I saw him on the field, it was only for 3 backer sets. I didn't see Woodaz come out and Sammy go in. Let's see here. I got the counts pulled up here because I was looking at them earlier today. Yeah, Barrett Carter, Wade Woodaz, they both played 68, and Sammy came in for 7 on the 3 backer sets. Peter Woods has been hurt. They said after the game, or Dabo said after the game Saturday night, that they had him on a snap count. They didn't want him to play more than 20, and I think he ended up playing 21. And he didn't start, which we knew he played 22, which we knew you could tell during pregame he wasn't going to start. Just some of the way they do the drills, you can tell who's starting and who's not. I don't know. I can't tell you what the injury is specifically, but he hurt a knee in that App State game. He missed the last 2 games and didn't practice a whole lot this past week, according to Dabo. So they just wanted to take it easy with him Saturday, and maybe they get him amped up this week in practice, and he gets turned loose at Wake Forest. If Miami get Clemson right now, my mind says Miami, my heart says Miami. We must have a Miami fan on the line with us. Cam Ward might be the best quarterback in the country, man. That offense is something. They got to clean some things up on defense, but that would be a heck of a game, man, if they were to both make it to Charlotte. Hopefully hopefully, the ACC can keep their nose out of it and let what happens on the field decide the result. O-line has taken a step back to me the last two games. Is there an issue there? I don't think there's an issue there at all. I don't know that I'd say they've taken a step back the past two games. I would just say that, especially Saturday, the competition they were playing were better. I know Florida State's defensive line hasn't lived up to its billing, but it's still loaded with guys that are going to play on Sundays. And they were up for that game. I thought their defensive line played really well, and I thought Clemson's offensive line held up fantastic. In fact, like I said earlier, I thought it got better as the game went on, and they really took it over, especially in that fourth quarter. And if you want to be a really good football team, I think you need an offensive line that can take games over late, and I think that's what Clemson did Saturday. This right here, I think fans got so used to Brett Venables' philosophy or his blitz philosophy that unless there are sacks, it feels like no pressure. I agree. Especially with Wes is just different how he attacks quarterbacks. He brings pressure. But you don't see him bringing the house like Venables would. Not very often. With Wes, he's going to bring a guy from over here. It's more a matter of where he's going to bring it from and who he's going to bring. You're not going to see him just bring everybody like Venables would sometimes on some, in certain situations. They're just different. But I would agree because they're different, philosophies, different approaches. So, it looks different. And people think, obviously, Brett Venables left some big shoes to fill. I think Wes has done a pretty good job of filling those shoes. I mean, obviously, it's not all been perfect. He's had there's been some areas, particularly the Florida State game last year when they went, when they went basically prevent there before halftime. Thought that was kind of boneheaded, and it ended up costing them. But I think he's done a pretty good job of learning from his mistakes. Capehart was the reason FSU couldn't get the run game going. Cape, you don't have to convince me. That man is a one-man wrecking crew. One-man wrecking crew, man. Sometimes you see him out there just ragdolling some of these offensive linemen. Just wait till he gets back 100% healthy. Lucas needs to sit. Yeah, I kind of touched on this at the top. I did not think Lucas played very, very well Saturday night. And obviously the coaching staff didn't either because they kept pulling him out. I thought Lucas was fantastic against Georgia. I thought he was really good, but he's kind of it's kind of gone a little downhill a little bit more and more with each passing week. I'll say what I said earlier. If you're going to have your redshirt sophomore out there who's been in the program a couple years, even though he hadn't played much due to injury, but he's been around, he should know what to do. If you're going to have him making those kind of mistakes, you might as well run your true freshman out there because he's probably going to make the same mistakes, maybe even fewer, and see what he can do. I would not have any qualms about running Ashton Hampton out there more. I've said it 100 times. Mike Reed always gets the benefit of the doubt with me. Whatever he wants to do, whoever he wants to run out there, I got 100% faith in that guy. Any issues at corner, I have no doubt still get fixed just because who's coaching them. Why is the ACC protecting Miami so much? Because they are the only remaining unbeaten ACC team. And, it's not a guarantee that if you win the ACC, you get an automatic spot in the playoff. But it's pretty much that's the way it's probably going to work out most years. But number one, you got a top 10 team. You want to protect that. It gets you the better time slots, a little bit more advertising revenue, all those kind of things. But it all goes back to the playoff. You want to ensure you get one team in there, and you want to do what you can to give you the best shot at getting two teams in. Even though I think for the ACC to get two teams in, they would need a lot of help. You'd have to have a lot of these teams in the SEC and Big Ten losing multiple games for it to happen. Because this thing's just set up now where it's basically going to be the SEC Big Ten Invitational when it comes to these at-large bids. But in a nutshell, that's my opinion on why the ACC is protecting Miami. They're the only undefeated team in the ACC. They're sixth in the country. They're also not suing the ACC. I still think Cade needs another year if he wants to maximize his NFL. I'm not laughing at this. I'm laughing at one of these other comments I'm reading. You're probably right, but the bottom line is it doesn't really matter what we think. All that matters is what he thinks. We've seen it time and again. O-line should get some credit for the Stat Beret post. I saw that. They went from 65th to 7th so far in yards per carry from last year. They were 4 point something last year. They are 6.12 this year. That is all offensive line. Was Clemson's effort from Saturday good enough to beat Wake Saturday? Yeah. This is the one I was laughing at. What's up, Chris? If you don't start putting some baseball recruiting in these live shows. Yeah, Backett's is definitely cooking. I just don't follow baseball recruiting like I do with football. Not because obviously I'm like you, I'm like Andy, and I know we excuse us for a minute as we have a one-on-one conversation. I'm a baseball guy. Everybody that watched this show pretty much knows it. I am. That was my sport coming up. And as soon as football season's over, I will talk baseball more than basketball. You can bank on it. I just don't do much baseball recruiting. I do know one kid in the 26 class, Clemson pulled a scholarship offer. I'm not going to name his name. I think there's another one that hasn't gone public with it yet. That last part, though, Backett's is cooking. Absolutely. Some of these commitments he's picked up in the past couple of weeks, big-time guys. Big-time guys. Clemson's going to be in Omaha sooner rather than later. I wouldn't bet against it being this year if they can get the pitching right. It's hard not to like what he's doing, man. They finally got the right guy in place there. I absolutely believe Clemson's going to win a national championship in baseball with Backett as the head coach. At least one. I 100% believe that. Think Miami getting saved, or are they a real threat? I think hey, look, make no mistake, man. Both of these can be true. I think Miami's gotten saved 2 weeks in a row. Thought it was a bad call to call it a touchdown in the Virginia Tech game because I don't just based on what I saw on television, obviously the official was right there. He had a better look than anybody. But they have gotten saved 2 weeks in a row. There is no denying that. But that is one of the best offenses in college football. That might be the best quarterback in college football. Cam Ward is a dude. That little receiver they got, I forget his name. He is really good. I think they got some things to clean up on the defensive side of the ball. Clemson's got some things they need to clean up on the defensive side of the ball. But so yeah, to answer your question, I think they've gotten saved the last 2 weeks, and I think they absolutely could beat Clemson in Charlotte. I mean, I think it's a possibility. I don't think. I mean, if those two teams faced off for the ACC championship, um, Miami might would be favored depending on how things play out the rest of the way. I mean, by 3 points or whatever, but I think that would be a battle, man. And it's one as we sit here today, a lot of things can change between now and the first weekend in December. But as we sit here today, that's one I could see going either way. Why are you a Clemson reporter, given the fact that you are from the lower part of the state? I got to live in Clemson to report on them. I spent a lot of time there. I might as well live there. But no, I don't live there. I mean, I don't know that it matters. I'm at the press conferences. Why do I got to actually call that my home? I know people that cover Clemson that live in Columbia, Greenville, which is an hour away. Columbia's 2.5 hours away, 2.5 hours away. So I'm definitely not the only one covering them that does not live there in Clemson or Pickens or Pendleton or wherever. Who is the owner of the special teams issue right now, Greed or Gris? I think it's the player. I don't know that I just think there was a couple of breakdowns on that side. I'm not gonna call it an issue at this point. If we see it again, we can call it an issue then. But right now, I'm gonna call it an anomaly, and we'll see how they get it cleaned up. But I might change my opinion on this later, but as we sit here today, I'm going with the player. Player not executing the plan. Should we be concerned about our recruiting class for 2025? Yes. There's only, it gives you, it takes you back to Dabo's first recruiting class when he only had 12 guys in it. Right now, there are only 14 players committed in the class. That's not a lot. You lost 2 decommitments, 2 big time decommitments too. I mean, let's be real. 2 guys that probably had a chance to come in and compete for immediate playing time. But, if you get to signing day and you've only got 14, 15 guys, I think that's a concern. I mean, is it something that's going to, you could obviously, if you got a hole, you can plug it through the portal. It's something that you have another tool to address that now. But I would also say let's get to December and see where we are, because there's still a few more guys that they're trying to add. And the guys that they do have, most of them are pretty dang good. I've watched Amari Adams a lot. If he ever, he might need a year once he gets to Clemson, but I think he's going to be a really good player. I think the defensive end, Wofford's going to be a really good player. I think they got one of the best corners in the country in Littleton. Tay Harris is about as dynamic of a dude as you can get, man. He's just a playmaker. Quick as a hiccup. Braden Jacobs, one of the best offensive tackles in the class. Gideon Davidson might be the best running back in the class, depending on who you ask. Marquez Henderson there at BHP. The dude is just electric with the ball in his hands. If they can, he might be a little undersized to play running back. If they could turn him into a slot guy, he could be a weapon for you. I think Easton Ware is another good offensive lineman. I think he's a little underrated. I think Logan Anderson, linebacker, is severely underrated. Then you got some other good pieces here. I think Brooking, it could end up being a pretty solid tight end. I think Roland Bird's a little bit underrated as an offensive lineman, and the guy they just picked up last week, the Williams Lee kid, he is a monster, man. Go watch his film. That dude is a monster. I know his recruiting ranking is low. He's a 3-star guy, I think, at every site but one. But I think I'm looking at it right here. He's ranked 87th among all defensive linemen. You know, his film don't say he's the 87th best defensive lineman. Don't know enough about Juju Preston to say one way or the other. Again, he's not played yet this year. And the same with Blake Hebert. There's just not a lot. Hebert got hurt in the opening game last year, missed the rest of the season, so there's not a lot of film on him. Will say that I thought he killed it at camp last year, but that's throwing against the air and drills and stuff. I do think they got a lot of really good players in this class, but it's just you'd like to see them add a few more. If you can get around 18, I feel a whole lot better. If you get and not just with fallback type players. Clemson's done that a few times in the past few years, and I'm gonna take this moment right here to remind everybody that I said back in 2022 that Jaheim Lawson would prove to everybody calling him a backup or a fallback player that he was not a fallback player, and I think he's doing that. Man, we got some Miami fans in the house. Appreciate all y'all tuning in. Are you worried that all of the QBs we faced have looked at least decent? Nah, not really. I'm not. I mean, am I worried that quarterbacks have had? I guess you're asking me, am I worried about Clemson's pass defense? Is that what you're asking me? No, not really. Again, I think if you got an issue at corner, I think Mike Reed will get that fixed. I'm not too worried about that. Clemson's allowing 222 yards a game in the air. The red zone defense has been pretty good for the most part. If I'm remembering that right. Wait a minute, let's see. I got it pulled up right here. Okay, I'll take that back. Red zone defense needs to be better. Now that would be where I'd maybe want to see some improvement. But I don't think the pass defense has been too bad. I think it could have been better Saturday night. But again, I don't worry too much about the corners. I think Reed will get that fixed. And like whoever it was that mentioned earlier, I think Ashton Hampton is going to be a really good player for Clemson. Something wrong with my mic? Okay. Somebody tell me if it's still doing it. I guess it's okay then. Let's see. I got to get back to where I was. Okay, Clemson's out of it for McGuire. He went ahead and committed today. Then see, I hadn't been home all day. Saw a lot of Clemson players embracing DJ. Is there no beef with DJ? Read articles, said he wanted to play and beat Clemson really bad before he got hurt. No, I don't think there's any beef. Nothing substantial anyways. I mean, he got beat. He was not going to be the starting quarterback at Clemson the next year. He needed to leave and go find himself another opportunity. And I also think some of the things he said in that interview got a little taken out of context and were twisted a little bit. I don't think he really meant anything, any malice behind those comments. But as far as him saying he wanted to play and beat Clemson really bad, I didn't see those. I'm not saying they didn't happen. I didn't see them. I think Miami's good, but can also put themselves in a hole they can't climb out of. They climbed out of a 38-10 hole the other night. Where Malesko and Moore hurt, didn't see much of them in the second half. Wesco looked like he was limping a little bit after the game to me. So I was wondering if he got a little banged up during the game myself. Because his snap counts were down a little bit. He did play he ended up playing 40 of the 70 something snaps. So maybe that it just felt like they were a little bit down. But TJ Moore was fine. Hey, there's nothing wrong with him. I think Randall would get a dozen or more snaps. You know what? It is amazing that guy's already back and ready to play. Just watching him down there a little bit on the sidelines there. I mean, he doesn't no limp, anything, man. He just had a surgical procedure done on that foot. It's amazing. If I wouldn't be shocked at all if he didn't play Saturday. At least some. You know, obviously he's not going to start anymore or anything, but I would not be surprised at all to see him back on the field. Should college football adopt the NFL kickoff rule? I hate the NFL new kickoff rule, so I say no. Is Tyler Brown still injured? I don't remember seeing. Yeah, he played Saturday. I'm trying to remember if he actually started or not. Hold on, I can tell you. He didn't play that much. No, he didn't start. He played 17 snaps. But Dabo said after the game, they've been doing the same thing with him. They've been doing with Peter Woods, trying to work him back slowly. So I would bet almost anything that Tyler Brown had a high ankle sprain. Now, I can't tell you that for sure, but that would be my bet as to what he's been dealing with. My problem with Goodwin is the defense takes on the personality of their coordinator, but Goodwin looks like a dweeb. So, you know, just because you look like a dweeb don't mean you have the personality of one. Go listen to Barrett Carter's interview last week talking about how Wes gets sometime during the game and, you know, how he can't even understand what he's saying, you know, in the mic because he's so worked up and so agitated. What you see with Wes, like in interviews and stuff, that is not the Wes you would see on the practice field or on the sidelines. I would just say don't confuse the two because they are very different personalities. I've seen it firsthand. It's very different. Don't understand why the play calling in the second half was so conservative the other night. I guess Dabo was just content to not run up the score. I don't think it had anything to do with running up the score. I've not watched the broadcast. I didn't see this with my own eyes, but somebody told me that on the broadcast it looked like they called a clip of Dabo. On the Dabo on the sideline, can you really read his lips? He was saying, "Just run, Mafia." I thought it looked like that was the game plan to me, a heavy dose of Mafia, because Florida State's run defense has been downright trash this season. So it makes sense that that's what you want to do. Run it at them, and run it at them some more till you wear them down. And I thought Florida State rose up and answered the challenge early on, man. Mafia couldn't get anything going in that first half until late. And then once he broke off that first long run, you know, then it kind of started to build from there, and they worked them, and they finally wore them down. But I don't. You know, so first of all, I'd say I think the game plan from the jump was to be run heavy. But then as you settle into that thing, I don't think there's any reason to go away from that. You you pretty much feel like you got the game in control, even though the score might suggest otherwise. Just the feel of the game. I know Florida State had a chance to pull within 8 at one point there, but even then, it just feels like you've got control of the situation, and you don't want to do anything to screw that up. Throw a dumb pick or a ball bounce off a receiver's hands and get taken back for a touchdown. The running game's starting to get going. Just hand it to your guy and let him work. So that for me, that's kind of how I see that. Do you think we will improve our defense on the outside? It seems like every team we've played has found success on pass or check down pass. If you're asking me about like setting the edge and stuff, I thought Clemson was much better setting the edge this week than they were last week. And again, Florida State couldn't run the ball at all. I don't. When you say our defense on the outside, it seems like every team we've played has found success on pass or check down pass. I don't know what that means with outside. I mean, if you can get a team or a quarterback keep having to hit his check down guy, play after play after play, you're doing something right. As long as you don't, give up 20-yard plays to the check down guy. You sound like a conspiracy theorist on Miami and the ACC. Absolutely. I don't buy into many. I'm buying into that one. Targeting is the most mismanaged, misunderstood, and destructive rule in college football period. I agree. Thing is, 2 weeks ago, man, I saw a targeting called on a guy on a hit that was below the waist. Below the waist. If that's targeting, then what we saw the other night was textbook. Hope Backus gets these guys on campus. Okay, I didn't explain that very. He's not pulling offers from other kids so he can bring in better players. If you go and look on the website, last year's roster had 40-something players on it. By 2026, they're going to have, I think it's 36. They're going to get down to 36. There's going to be a roster limit in baseball, and I'm having a hard time. It might be 30. I can't remember what it is. And they're going to end up having to lose, 6, 8 guys, something like that, from what they had this year. So that's what it's about more so than pulling offers to snag better players. It's just they've had to pull a couple offers to at least one of the guys were committed. They pulled off from the committed guy because the rosters are going to be smaller, not going to be able to take as many players. And as far as worrying about them getting to campus, that's something every head coach has to deal with. It's just the nature of the beast. Yes, the judge has, given preliminary. Man, I'm struggling with my words here. Preliminary approval of the House settlement. That was the next big hurdle to get over. They're over it. Um, Players have until there's a date in January. They have to opt out, or I wrote up a story on it on the site today. And then there's another hearing in April to finalize. It's looking like everything's on track to be in place by, for football season of next year. Revenue sharing is coming. Yeah, I don't. There's something up. Yeah, there's something up with my mic. If I get too close to it, that's when it starts to cut out. I don't. It's brand new, so I don't know what the heck's going on with it. I'm not tech savvy enough. I try to make sure I stay away from it. May have read it wrong, but the play-by-play showed that Clemson had 0 pass attempts from the middle to about the middle of the third to the end of the game. That sounds about right. That sounds about right. They went very run heavy at the end. Like Harry's saying right here, don't screw it up. That's kind of what it felt like. Passing in space on the outside, Georgia ate us up on that. Clemson's got some guys that could definitely be better at playing a little bit more disciplined and not getting caught with their eyes in the right spot. Um, be better at taking better angles. Yeah, Georgia made them pay for that some, and Stanford did too to a degree. But with Stanford, it was more about not getting the edge set. That was the biggest thing, and we didn't see those kind of issues Saturday night. At least with the not getting the edge set, there were a couple times I thought a couple guys took some bad angles, but I think it's getting better. Are we going to lose more recruits soon, Andy? Okay, I've already answered the adding part a few minutes ago. If you'd asked me 2 weeks ago if Clemson was going to lose anybody else, I'd have said probably that I think more, at least one more was coming. October 7th. You can mark down the date as we sit here today. I don't feel that way anymore. I feel a little bit better, but I feel a lot better about it. I do think I think Clemson has some fires they needed to put out, and I think they've gotten them put out. Still 2 months to go till signing day, though. Yes, I wish Clemson played another team at home during fall ball. They didn't last year. They're not this year. They're going on the road to play Alabama. So all you'll get at home is the annual intra squad scrimmages that they play every year, which happen to be on the weekend of a road football game. So I will not be able to make it this year. I've been to all those things every time I'm able to. This will be the first one I've not been to in a while. Even last year, they did one of their scrimmages was at Coastal, so I was able to get to that one. Then they went to East Carolina, I think it was right after that. I didn't get to that one, but Alabama's a little too far. But man, February can't get here quick enough because that preseason or that season opening tournament, that's gonna be some good baseball. You got some really good matchups that weekend, Valentine's Day weekend. I hadn't told the wife yet I'm gonna be in Dallas that weekend. What do I think about the Dylan Stewart celebration? Number one, Scoreboard, dude. Scoreboard. Number 2, that was about as low class as it gets. Number 3, if you've not seen Ole Miss quarterback Jackson Dart's response to that thing in a tweet that he did yesterday, go look it up. it's pretty savage. And number 4, you can't be you got to be smarter than that, man. You cannot make those kind of plays, those boneheaded decisions, in a game in which you're trailing. It's just inexcusable. And this is a guy I think is going to be a really good player, man. He is. He was one of the better defensive ends in the last class. He's a dude, man. But that was pretty low class. I like your podcast. I listen and learn. I appreciate it. We here every Monday, man. Every Monday. Here's another good point. For all of the conservative play calls that we got late, some actually worked. That wouldn't have reigned true last year. I agree. They started to get that running game going there in that second half, particularly in the fourth quarter. Yeah, there was a couple at least one of Stewart's teammates called him out in the media after the game. So you got to be better than that, man. You got to be better than that. Appreciate everybody that's tuned in tonight, man. Don't forget, we'll be right back here next Monday. Hopefully, we'll get a break from the ACC saving Miami because Miami's off this week, if I'm remembering that right. So don't have to worry about that this weekend. Their unbeaten season will remain safe for another week. ACC officials, you can take the weekend off. But we'll be right back here next Monday. We'll talk about Wake Forest. Anything else y'all guys want to talk about? Maybe even a little bit more baseball, Chris. Don't forget, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Check us out, Clemson Insider.